Hello and welcome to what is this show? Culture Shark, a live stream about all things pop culture. I'm Final Monkey.
And I'm Caleb.
I was trying to do three things at once and it did not work.
I said, are you ready?
Yeah. So today we are discussing a classic, Reservoir Dogs, by Quentin Tarantino, and we are working through a list of some of the greatest films ever made. Um, so I think the way we will do this is first we will do a kind of non-spoilery quick discussion, and then we'll
hmm
get into spoilers.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
So
Um, let,
I
let, let, let's
yeah, go
start,
ahead.
before we get into like just non spoilers, I guess I guess this is part of non spoilers. Go ahead with what you were about to say. Actually, I wasn't sure what you were about to say. Go ahead.
Sure. So I had never seen this movie. I've seen a few Quentin Tarantino movies. I've seen Kill Bill, Part One and Two, and Inglorious Bastards. I always want to say Desperado is a Quentin Tarantino film, but it is not. He is in that movie, but it is not
Yeah.
a it is not a
No,
Quentin
no,
Tarantino film.
no. Desperado is Tarantino's boyfriend, Rodriguez.
Yes, yes. So I kind of had avoided this movie. You know, I sometimes movies that are like I don't do well with torture.
Uh huh.
And so I had known that this movie featured a torture scene. I'll put that in quotes. I used to read Toy Fair magazine by Wizard magazine, uh, and they would parody this. They would do Mego Twisted Theater, where they would do little comic strips with toys, and there was I distinctly remember Doctor Octopus tied to a chair while Spider-Man hissed her off a razor to stuck in the middle of you.
Yeah.
So so I knew that was in the movie, and so I had just kind of avoided this movie. Also, so I knew that about this film, and then Conker's Bad Fur Day. I remember parodied this in the multiplayer because all the weasels had different color names in the heist multiplayer.
Oh, okay. I didn't know
Yes,
that.
yes. So those were the two things I knew about. I knew there was Mr. Colors, like all the different colors in this, and then the torture scene. So
Okay. Myself, I have seen this many a times. I think I first saw this when I was like maybe 15. Um, and I love this movie. For the longest time, this actually was my favorite Tarantino movie. Um, what what is your opinion on this now?
so yeah, I quite enjoyed this movie. I don't think it's the greatest movie I've ever seen. I don't think it's the greatest Tarantino movie I've ever seen, but I did enjoy this quite a bit. Yeah. So
I
I,
I
I
th- I think it's the most quintessential Tarantino movie because most people talk about how like Quentin Tarantino's the king of dialogue, and this movie is like all dialogue, you know. So like, I agree that it's not his best, but I think like whenever you're talking about like the king of dialogue, this movie is like 100% dialogue. There's nothing else in this movie but dialogue.
it's largely characters stuck in a room
Yep.
movie. So uh, I'll briefly give a brief synopsis of what this movie is. Different thieves are hired for a bank heist. We never actually see the bank heist, and we just see the fallout from the heist that something went wrong, and they're all kind of blaming each other.
hmm
Did someone tip off the cops? And things just kind of slowly devolve into chaos. And I think that's really all I want to say without getting
Yeah.
into spoilers.
Yeah. I mean that that really is it. Quentin Tarantino is kind of known for loving hit westerns, and most of his films are westerns. Django and Hateful Eight are 100% westerns. if you really break down Kill Bill volumes 1 and 2, those are westerns. And I think the same with this. I think Reservoir Dogs can be considered a western as well, because this is like this is a 90-minute Mexican standoff.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's Mexican standoff. It
Yeah.
definitely is.
um,
Even that's one of the posters is they them
yeah,
bumping
yeah.
into each other. Yeah, it's one iconic scene. So,
Oh yeah.
uh,
So
so yeah, so
yeah.
definitely some. This movie definitely has some very iconic moments. It definitely has scenes that will stick with you. And yeah, I like I said, I enjoyed it. I'd probably give it like a maybe an 8 out of 10,
That's
somewhere around
fair, yeah.
there.
Yeah, that's fair.
And yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So again, if you're doesn't really show the gore, but if you're a little squeamish of
Mhm.
torture, maybe avoid this one. There, it is a
Yeah.
Tarantino film, so there's a lot of violence and language in it,
There
as per
the
usual.
yeah, the torture scene with Mr. Blonde, it very much focuses on, like, there's nothing more frightening than your viewer's imagination. They don't really show a whole lot. They
Yeah,
just let you hear it, and then you just
yeah,
got to imagine it. I will say this does make me want to put I Hateful Eight might be on the spreadsheet. Um, to me, so Hateful Eight actually is my favorite Tarantino film. Hateful Eight is this movie, but I think he like really refines it. So that might be something to put on the list, because Hateful Eight is very much it's not a follow up to this, but it's like it's almost like he wanted to go back and like refine Reservoir Dogs and make it an actual western.
sure. I would say for the performances, I think Tim Roth is the best actor in this.
Yeah.
His um, again, I won't say this is a spoiler because it happens kind of right away. He is dealing with a gunshot wound for most of the movie, and that
Mhm.
opening scene of him just in the back seat in agony
Yeah.
is some very good acting.
Oh yeah. It,
So
it's it's so fun because I mean this guy's Abomination, and we don't get any of that with his Abomination.
yeah, I've said this before that a lot of Marvel movies kind of squander their actors. We mentioned the guy who plays Hogun in the Thor movies, how little he is utilized, and then you watch him in Shogun, and he is fantastic. And it's like, what
Mhm.
Marvel? What are you doing? Come on, give him
Yeah.
something to do here. So
Now Tim Roth is someone who so Tarantino, what I love about Tarantino is you see this with a lot of directors, um, but it's really pronounced with Reservoir Dogs. Is he uses the same actors quite a bit, and so if you want more Tim Roth, just watch more Tarantino. um, Same with Michael Madsen, which he played Mr. Blonde, which you've seen Kill Bill, so he played Bud in Kill Bill.
Bud, it's been a while since I've seen Kill Bill. Which
Oh,
one was Bud?
Bud is Bud is Bill's brother. He's the one that buries her.
I thought that was not Michael Mars or
Michael Madsen.
yeah.
Yeah, no, Mr. Blonde. Yeah, so
Oh, I thought we were still talking about Tim Roth. I'm sorry.
no,
Yeah,
no,
yeah, yeah,
no.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
Michael Madsen definitely is. Yes, he
hmm
definitely is a Kill Bill.
yeah. And then another fun thing is sometimes Tarantino gets in on it himself, and he plays like the weirdest character. Like he intentionally writes himself as the weirdest character, and Mr. Brown gets like one scene of dialogue, and he's just a freak.
Yeah, yeah. He is not
Yeah,
he's not in it much at
yeah.
all.
Which you
So
know, yeah, oh, go ahead, go ahead.
I also we'll talk about him and Mr. Blue. So
Yeah, let's go ahead and put up the spoilers.
Yeah, I
the
think we've given
spoilers.
you enough reason to watch the film at this point if you haven't
Yeah.
seen it. So the full spoilers from here on out. We will be talking about the ending of the movie and everything in between. So
So let's go ahead and start with what I truly believe is one of the greatest scenes, um, the diner scene. I love this scene. I think there's just so much going on. Which if you've ever been at a restaurant with a bunch of bros, this is kind of how it goes.
yeah,
Because you've got like four conversations happening at the same time. You got one person who's just talking to himself. You got one guy who's dominating the conversation with his analytical BS about Madonna.
oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah,
That's actually Mr. Brown talking about like a virgin. uh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. But I really do think the king of the scene is Steve Buscemi. We didn't even talk about Buscemi in the non spoilers. Buscemi's fantastic in this.
Yeah, yeah. A lot
Um,
of fun.
I of course specifically love his whole monologue about tipping culture,
Hmm.
which is it's one of those things that like I don't know if this is like a hot take. I agree with him. I'm just too much of a sissy to act on it. You know what I mean?
Well, if you ask other countries, they look at us like we're idiots. Like, what are you
Yeah,
talking about tipping? Yeah, it's very much a United States thing.
yeah.
And
When my mom and dad went to Italy last year, they said it felt so wrong to not tip, but
mhm,
it's just not something they do. In fact, I can't remember if it's like considered disrespectful. I think.
sure, yeah,
Uh, but yeah, no, I love his whole thing about uh, uh, tipping, and I think that what's his son's name? Eddie Cabot,
hmm,
played by Chris Penn. Um, he's got a great line whenever Steve Buscemi says, "Listen, we've been here a long." I'm gonna not say a lot of the words, but he's like, "We've been here a long freaking time. Waitress has refilled my coffee 3 times. As long as we've been here, I expect 6 times." Um, and and Mr. Blue's like, "Well, this lady was nice. Sure, they're nice. They're supposed to be nice." And then I think Harvey Keitel, Mr. White, is like, "What'd you expect her to take you in the back room and
yeah.
blah, 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 blah." and then Eddie says, I'd pay over 15% for that." It's just it's a great scene, and uh, I mean, just what a way to open, followed by the classic, just the boys walking in a straight line, like.
Yeah, so this is their our kind of our meet and greet. Most people, these guys have not met each other up to this point. This is their well, actually, they I guess they had their
Mhm.
session where they got their names, the
Yeah.
playing session.
So
So one
this,
thing one thing this movie does is a lot of scenes are out of order.
yes,
So
yes, and there of course is a reason for that, specifically having to do with Tim Roth is Mr. Orange, specifically with Mr. Orange. Um, so we'll definitely get to that. But yeah, so it kind of starts off like it's just a nice day at the diner, and then we're gonna go rob a jewelry store.
yeah, I question why. I don't know if this is. I mean, I assume it's just a movie thing. Why the robbers always wear the same outfits when they rob a bank? You know,
um,
I always wonder that. I mean, I guess it's harder to pick someone out when they all look the same. It's like, oh, they
mhm,
wore glasses and a suit and
mhm.
hair slicked back. Oh,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, and that's why I was saying, because this is the only Tarantino film where a black man is not a major player. And I think that's intentional because in this group, you wouldn't. I mean, if you want people to all look the same so that way they're not identifiable, having one black guy completely messes up your whole plan.
Sure, I get it. Yeah.
So yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah, and one
Um,
of the things they use is code names. They don't want anybody knowing anybody's real names or their past or anything. Much to Steve Buscemi's chagrin, because he is Mr. Pink and he doesn't want to be Mr. Pink.
and then Quentin Tarantino's like, Quentin Tarantino's character's like, "I'm Mr. Brown. That's like Mr. Shits."
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
uh, and then like the one who's cool with it is Harvey Keitel because he's Mr. White. He's like, "Well, you want to switch? No, you're not switching. Well, can I be Mr. Purple? I'm cool with Mr. Purple. No, Mr. Purple's a guy on another crew."
yeah. So let's talk real quick about their boss, who's played by Lawrence Tierney.
Yeah, Joe Cabot.
He is notorious for being hard to work with in movies. I've read
Okay.
interviews or seen interviews about him on Deep Space when he was on Deep Space Nine. They're all the crew was like he was terrible. He wouldn't learn his lines. He was fighting with everybody. I think he originally played Elaine's mom on Seinfeld, and or not
Father.
mom, father. What? Yeah, it was his mom. That's why you hate it. No, it was the father, and they only had him for one episode. They never brought that character back because it just didn't work out. So it's weird, kind of knowing that and seeing him in some of the lines he's delivering and stuff, and I'm just thinking about his reputation of being hard to work with.
Well, I mean, like this is probably the role he was born for.
Well, I mean, I know he's known for being in mobster movies and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, like he's just such a hole in this.
yeah, no nonsense.
Or
Yeah. So
he's like tip. Why didn't you tip? You don't believe? I wasn't talking to you. What do you mean you don't believe in
yeah.
it? Hey, put in $1, cheap ass. I'm paying for it. Oh, okay, just because you're paying for it. Are there any other circumstance? I would not do this.
Right.
Like I said, this movie is all dialogue. I know this script front and back. Like it's. I first watched this movie because this was back whenever Netflix was really the only streaming service. I had like the flu or something when I was 15, and they just had all the Tarantino films up to Django on Netflix, and I just watched all of them in a weekend.
There you go. That was a fun weekend.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Other than the flu, but
Yeah.
So
So Tim Roth is shot and he is in a lot of pain. So we get a lot of about the friendship between Mr. Orange and Mr. White, and I really like this part of the movie, especially this scene here where you really get the feeling that Tim Roth is dying. Like he's like,
yeah.
hold me, don't and it's two guys. You would never ask a tough guy, hey, can you hold
Yeah.
me?
Yeah.
And it's just like I'm dying here.
Well, and one thing that I definitely like, I don't think they ever mention in the movie, but based solely on this scene, you gotta know that Mr. White has a son the same age as Mr. Orange. He's got to, right?
Or a kid brother that he lost, or something.
Yeah.
There's something here that he's connecting with.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I always took it as a father-son relationship, but yeah, older brother, younger brother, definitely as well. But yeah, and like just it's insane because you got these people that just tried to commit a bank heist. They don't dwell on it too much, but they killed a lot of people in this botched thing. uh it's hard to remember that Mr. White is a bad guy because I mean, like, just throughout this whole movie, he seems like a really solid dude, you know?
Yeah, there I think there are different types of criminals. I think there are those that are just in it for the money, and then those that want to hurt people.
Yes.
And so he definitely feels like he's just, this is a job. I'm just here to, collect my cut and get out of here. Whereas Mr. Blonde wants people to pay for what society has done to him, especially the police. And
Yeah.
he really has he's a psychopath. He really
Hmm.
is. And so, the robbery's been botched, and they're starting to question. Well, at least when Mr. Pink arrives here this is the rendezvous point. They're all kind of waiting for people here, and Mr. Pink really thinks that one of them betrayed us because the cops showed up so soon.
Hmm. And this is also where we find out confirmed kills Mr. Blue and Mr. Brown. They died 100% in the heist itself.
So Mr. Blue, I just want to bring him up. I think he has like one or two lines in the movie.
Yeah.
As not an actor you really know, and so I was like, "What's the deal with him?" So, do you know what the deal is with him, the
I
actor?
don't.
He is an actual former criminal who was also acting as kind of a consultant on the movie, and so Quentin
Oh,
Tarantino wanted someone who actually looked like a criminal in the film, and so yeah, that is Mr. Blue. Edward
that's
Bunker
awesome. Yeah, that's
is his name.
awesome.
So, if I was
You know what I
a
like to imagine.
yeah,
What I'd like to imagine is because we get to know Mr. White's name, we get to know Mr. Orange's name, we get to know Mr. Blonde, and we'll get back to Mr. Blonde's name because that's important for the Tarantino cinematic universe. But if that's the case, I would like to imagine that Mr. Blue is just Edward Bunker.
sure. So yeah, if so, one of the big things about this movie is who is the mole. If I was a hacky writer, or if a hacky writer wrote this, I feel like Mr. Blue would have been the big reveal at the end, that he was the bad guy. Because like I said, literally in the first scene, and then they don't even show what happened to him. They just say, "Oh yeah, he's dead," and I mean that's it. So,
Yeah.
um, so we're waiting for people to get here. So we've got Orange and White are here. Pink shows up, and Pink is Steve Buscemi, and he is
He
just
is Steve
freaking
Buscemi.
he is freaking out, saying, "Look, we were betrayed. We gotta get out of here. Let's not even wait. I've got the diamond stash. Let's just go." And they're kind
And
of like,
then and they talk about, wait a second, you parked in front of the building.
"Yeah,
Yeah, it's great because that's stuff that you don't think about, and I'm sure that's what Mr. Blue was there for. Is like 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 you got to mention, you got to berate him for parking in front of the building because that's just stupid.
right, right." So they talk a lot, so I have a lot of plot issues with this movie.
Okay.
When you really think about like the plot and how police work, this movie quickly falls apart. Um, so I we're just gonna go ahead and say it. Mr. Orange is the undercover cop.
Well, I mean, like
And
and the thing is you actually, that's not like the big reveal at the end. That's about halfway through the movie.
right. So Mr. Orange is the cop. So let's just talk about the heist real quick. It is mentioned because we never see it. Mr. Blonde just started killing people. The alarm went off, and that well, the alarm went off, and that kind of spooked them. And the cops showed up very quickly.
Yes.
So, and we know that this is an undercover operation to try to get Joe. And so, to me, I guess because he started killing people is why the cops showed up so fast. Like they were monitoring, and they're like, "Oh crud, he's killing people. Let's go, let's go."
Yeah, that's the way I would take it.
Okay. The other thing is, at the end of the movie, you've got one of your cops dying inside. You don't know where the other one is. You don't know that he's been captured unless they're listening. Um, why did it take? I know they said they were waiting for Joe, but why? At that point, I think it would be like we gotta rescue our guys at that point. Um, unless they
In
unless they didn't know that Orange was shot. I mean, maybe they don't know that Orange was shot. Maybe they're just watching the building. I don't know.
So, in my and this is coming from a criminal justice. I have a degree in criminal justice, so I actually do have an answer for this.
Hmm.
Um, and it seems kind of heartless, but this is just the reality of it. When you have an undercover cop, they kind of know the risks and they know what they're getting into, and so the rest of the task force kind of treats them as such.
So they're
Um,
expendable. They're
yeah,
part of the mission and
yeah, it's
collateral
all about the
damage.
bottom. It's all about the bottom line.
Okay. I mean, those
Yeah,
were my kind of like, is this, I know it's a movie,
yeah,
but it was kind of, some of that was taking me out of it a little bit. I was like, I don't know.
mm, yeah.
Um,
But yeah, so it is Mr. Blonde that does. Uh, it is Mr. Blonde that captures the cop, which is where we get that stuck in the middle with you scene. Which
this,
once
this,
it, what's
I was
that?
going to say, this is a brilliant scene.
Yes, yes, it is. Which is it's so funny that you say it's a brilliant scene because this is the reason you avoided the movie.
Well, what I thought was brilliant was, the music is playing and it's kind of the lyrics are fitting with what is going on. You're
Hmm.
stuck in here with me. And then he goes outside and the music and everything just stops. Like after he's cut off the ear, he goes out there and it's peaceful. It's just a regular day. You hear kids playing and cars going by. And then as soon as he opens the door again, right then, please, the music kicks right back in and the chaos, you're just right back into the chaos.
Yep.
And yeah, just the way that they're inside the warehouse is chaos and the rest of the world is just going about its normal day.
Yeah, it's one
Uh
of those things that like you can like. It's kind of a messed up thought, but like let's say you're walking through Louisville, and you see just a it's a Saturday. You see a warehouse. You pay no mind to it. You have no idea what's going on there.
yeah, no, 100% agree. We're gonna get a little bit off topic real quick. There's a game called Project Zomboid. Have you ever heard of this game?
No.
It's basically a zombie simulator game, but it's set in Louisville because of Day of the Dead or Return of the Living
Hmm.
Dead,
Yeah.
and there's a new mod on it called Week One, where it's the week before the simulation happened, where there's a lot of people running around, and so it's just like you're walking around Louisville,
Oh, that's
and
so fun.
and it's really out of control because everybody's like on edge and paranoid because the virus is spreading. And so the guy was playing. He's like, "Let's see what happens." There was a group of people gathered around a guy playing a guitar, and he just walked up and hit the guy in the back of the head that was playing guitar, and everybody pulled out guns and started shooting each other. I was like, "Yep, that's Louisville." So,
Yeah.
um,
Oh, fun fact! You've mentioned video games. Fun fact: Reservoir Dogs actually has a video game adaptation that came out in 2006. It is a third-person shooter.
yeah, I saw that. I think I'm used to the Conker's Bad Fur Day version of it. So, um, yeah. So at this point, yes, Mr. Blonde here has kidnapped, which is also another rare game reference. Perfect Dark also had a Mr. Blonde.
Yep.
Um, so Mr. Blonde has kidnapped a cop, and the others leave him alone to go get the diamonds, and so it's just him and Mr. Orange, who's dying in the corner, and yeah, he tortures this cop. He's like, I don't expect you to tell me anything. I just, we're just gonna have some fun.
Now, real quick, let me go ahead and because what comes next is the end of Mr. Blonde. Before we get to that, um, so he is one of those that we actually get his name. Do you remember what his name is?
I'm pulling it up right now. Toothpick Vic Vega. Vega, is that a Pulp Fiction reference or something?
So Victor Vega is actually Vincent Vega's brother. Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs are in the same universe. So John Travolta is Michael Madsen's brother.
Gotcha. Okay. So I know that there's like two types of Tarantino movies. There's the ones that are in the same universe, or there are movies that they would watch in that universe.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. And
Yeah.
so I always had this pitch for what I because Tarantino always said that number 10 is going to be his last, and so he has no idea what he's going to do if it's going to be his last. What I always thought would be cool is Victor and Vincent are both dead. I always thought it'd be cool if there was a third Vega brother. Uh, yeah, I've always called him Virgil Vega, and it's about him like going and going around and killing those who may have been involved or directly responsible for the death of his brothers. So at this point in Reservoir Dogs, and this is what I like to believe, I actually believe that Mr. Pink got away out of all of them, and so he'd like go after Mr. Pink. I see him going after Marcellus Wallace in Pulp Fiction because he's the one who sent Vincent on the mission. I see him going after uh, Bruce Willis's character in Pulp Fiction because he's the one who actually killed Vincent. Um, and uh, the way I always pictured the title is you can't spell vengeance without Vega. Like that's the name of the movie. Um, and Virgil Vega, I think is perfect. Is it would be Nicolas Cage. Like that. That's if I were to pitch a Quentin Tarantino movie. That like Quentin Tarantino. If you want that, I don't pay me. Take it, please. You can have it. Just make the movie, dude. But yeah, so that's I don't remember specifically what movies are in which universe. I do know that I do know that Kill Bill and Django are in the same universe, but I think those are in the movie universe rather than the like 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 Kill Bill and Django are like what Mr. Orange would go see on a Sunday at
Yeah,
the
I know
movie theater.
Inglorious is in the movie universe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, so here we see, yeah, Mr. Orange takes out Mr. Blonde. He's about to set the cop on fire, and that's it. That's too far. I mean, cutting off the ear, okay, fine, but yeah, this is it. I do like the dialogue here between the two cops, where the guy in the chair cries like, "I'm deformed," and he's like, "And I'm dying." You
And
know?
I'm dying. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's one of those like like I said, even the informants though undercover, they know the risks. So
Yeah.
like uh which is how you know that this cop is not involved in this sting whatsoever because he's just worried about his ear.
Right. Yeah. So the others get back and they don't believe Orange's story at all. That he just that Blonde went crazy and shot him. Like Mr. White takes his side, Orange's side. He's like, "We told you, Mr. Blonde's crazy." So
Yeah,
this is
and yeah, this is where Joe and Eddie actually show up finally.
yeah. So Eddie shows up first, and So talk a little bit about Chris Penn. The only other movie I've seen him in is Corky Romano. So I was, it's, it's a little bit of it's a similar role, but it's different. Uh,
Yeah.
so, um, I thought he was pretty good in this. And
Fun fact: he voice acts a corrupt cop, also named Eddie, in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas.
there you go. He's the one that passed away recently, right? I
Uh,
believe. Let me.
no, he
Yeah,
died in
he
like 2006.
2006. That's right. Okay.
I guess what is recent, you know?
Right. Yeah. In my head, everything past 2000 is recent. Um, So yeah, so this is another scene that I was confused by, and apparently I'm not the only one. I was reading online about this Mexican standoff we have here.
Okay.
Um, so I keep forgetting his name. Joe shows up and says that Mr. Orange is the mole. He's the cop. Mr. White doesn't believe him, and so Joe's gonna shoot Mr. Orange. So Mr. White points his gun at Joe. Eddie points his gun at Mr. White. And then they all start firing and they all fall over. So my question was, who shot Eddie? And
Uh,
so they say that what happened. Do you know what happened behind the scenes when they were filming this scene?
I don't. Ironically, I'm usually up to date on behind the scenes. This is actually a movie I've actually am not familiar with behind the scenes. So I guess I've always had like two theories in my head. What happened behind the scenes?
So I think there was supposed to be another scene after this. I think Joe was supposed to get shot, and then Mr. White was supposed to get shot, and then Eddie was supposed to say something that Mr. White was going to shoot Eddie. The squib went off too quickly in Chris Penn's shirt. It wasn't supposed to go off when it did, so he just automatically fell over. And they didn't have
Hmm.
the money to reshoot the scene, so Quentin Tarantino's like, "We'll just leave it ambiguous. The audience could figure out what happened. Did Mr. Pink shoot him? Did Orange shoot him? They said Orange was out of bullets, but what happened here?"
So
And so go ahead. What are your theories?
So my one of my theories was, one of my theories was Orange, but I forgot he was out of bullets. My other one is like White like takes him out on the way down.
So they White does get off multiple shots, but they're not at the right angle. So again, this was not supposed to happen, but they left it in there. So the script says Mr. White shot him. So yeah, it's kind of up to the audience to decide. And Quentin Tarantino said that himself. He's like, it's up to the audience to decide what happened. Let the movie
Yeah,
speak for itself.
yeah. I don't see why Pink would have shot him though. Like
Uh,
other than just a cut and run thing.
yeah, like I want the diamonds. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Or there's no good solutions once this is over. One thing I want to bring up before we get to the end of the movie, we do see a lot of the flashbacks, and I kind of took these as exaggerated a little bit. Like these are, what's the term for a narrator you can't trust?
Unreliable.
Unreliable narrator. Like the the scenes where they kill cops and stuff are so over the top, like them just firing like hundreds of shots. Like I just felt like that was their way of telling the story, and maybe it was just like one shot that took out the cop or whatever. And I felt like their version of telling the stories was kind of amping up what happened. So
Mm-hmm.
they're not the most. Yes, those events did happen, but they're not exact. It's kind of over the top because they're remembering it in their heads, and their memories are not trustworthy.
Mm.
So
Oh, listen to this. So I'm just reading through some of Tim Roth's stuff. Um, Tim Roth's agents originally wanted him to be Mr. Pink or Mr. Blonde, but he preferred Mr. Orange because he would, quote, be an English actor pretending to be an American playing a cop pretending to be a robber.
nice.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So um with Mr. Orange, there are scenes about him preparing to be an undercover cop. He's having to memorize backstory.
Oh, you gotta like this is the story. You gotta remember it, and you gotta make it your own.
Yeah, and they also, I think it's fun when you give characters quirks. That this is a comic book fan. He talks a lot about the Fantastic Four. He's got posters of Silver Surfer on his wall and stuff. So, little things like that, really flesh out your character. So I think that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah, and this really is like how they get um undercover like people to go undercover is they know the risks, they're expendable, but if things turn out well, you get your detective shield.
Oh, is that how it works? Okay, I didn't know
Yeah.
how.
Well, I mean that's how it is. Like that's not necessarily like that's not a requirement for your detective shield, but that's really how they get a lot of, and that's how they get Mr. Orange is like you do this and you get your detective shield.
Gotcha. Yeah, it is a insane risk to to take.
Yes.
So, um, yeah, and they probably try to use, I would assume, cops that are single and don't have families and stuff, because this would
Yep.
have to be a nightmare.
Oh yeah.
So, um, at the end of the movie, Mr. Pink takes the diamonds, runs out the door. We hear police sirens, gunshots. I took it that Mr. Pink's dead. Do you think he might still be alive? It
Yes.
doesn't. It
Yes.
doesn't say. Um, this scene is sad. He confesses that he's a cop, and Mr. White is dying himself and puts the gun to Mr. White's head. The camera doesn't quite show you what happened, but I mean it's assumed that he killed Mr. Orange,
Yeah.
and then the cops take
This
him out.
yeah. So the script is not specific about Mr. Pink. The script says Mr. White shoots Mr. Orange.
Yeah, yeah, and that's how I took it. And then that is the where the credits start. Um,
So
so
I'm definitely I put up there I have one more slide because you mentioned to remind you that you wanted to talk about the credits for some reason, and I love the credits. I don't know why you want to talk about them though. So
yeah, so they start playing the coconut song, put the lime in the coconuts. And I was like, I'm just gonna let this play. Have you? And I've heard the song 100 times, but have you really listened to the lyrics to the song and how frantic it gets towards the end?
I know it speeds up, but I guess I've never
He
listened to the lyrics.
he's saying, "I need a doctor. My gut's hurting. Get me a doctor. My gut's in a lot of pain. I need a doctor." He started
Oh,
really scream for a doctor towards the end,
oh, oh, okay.
and it's like the perfect choice for this movie
Yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
what Orange is going through.
That's another thing. Is Orange the whole movie is like, just take me to the hospital, please.
Yeah, yeah, they
and
won't
then
do it.
and then they're like, no man, we're not gonna let you go to jail. And we all know that it doesn't matter because he's a cop. So he
Right.
just it's like
Like, "Just
what
leave me outside, do something."
yeah. What and one other thing in that first scene, Mr. White does let Mr. Orange know his first name is Larry, which is
Yeah,
huge. They're not supposed to do that. And so now you can't take him to the hospital because he knows Mr. White's real name is Larry.
right. Yeah, let's see. Uh, said, "Doctor, ain't there nothing I could take?" I said, "Doctor, to relieve this belly ache." And yeah, it just keeps saying that over and over, getting louder and
Because he got
quicker.
shot in the stomach.
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's the part that and Stuck in the Middle of You, both perfect songs for this movie.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, Tarantino's pretty good about like he's not. So James Gunn has like an entire soundtracks and score like he has entire soundtracks and albums for his movies. Tarantino, he uses songs more sparingly, but they're usually more like this. I guess. I never noticed the lime one though. That's one I've never noticed.
Yeah, I almost started off the movie, but I was like, you know what? This is a fun song. I'll listen to this. It was pretty funny. So yeah, that's Reservoir Dogs. Definitely one that was very influential for a lot of movies. Put Tarantino on the map and launched his career.
Yeah.
Next week we will be discussing more Fantastic Four. We're kind of alternating between movies and comic books every week. So next week we're going to continue talking about the Mark Waid Ringo run of Fantastic Four, and this is where it gets really good. We did part one, and it was kind of like, okay, these are typical Fantastic Four stories,
And then
but
the unthinkable prologue is just like, oh, this is where everything else is going.
yeah, so we're gonna get into Unthinkable and then Authoritative Action, and then 2 weeks after that will be the final part where we talk about I think it's called Hereafter. Uh, these are some really great Fantastic Four stories, so I cannot wait to read them and discuss them. But that will be next week. So until next time, I've been Final Monkey,
And I'm Caleb.
and we'll catch you next time in the Shark Pond.
See ya.